Alright, well, good morning, afternoon, whatever time it is, everyone. So, I'm going to be telling my story. So this is going to take place in like a medieval castle. You guys are going to be, let's say, preteens, like 10, 13 years old. I'm going to be King Duncan. So, a little bit of backstory. My story comes from a little piece of a book, Ranger's Apprentice. And before this happened, you have to know a little bit of stories about people. So Halt, he's a ranger, which is kind of like a scout, so he protects the kingdom in the shadows. He kind of gets all the information. He's a really tactician-no person. He's an expert in the bow, and this is kind of during the medieval time, so they take in apprentices. So he apprenticed Will, who is Horace's wardmate. So they're orphans, and the kingdom takes in kids whose parents fought in the war and were killed in action, and they take care of them until they get to of age, which is around 16 years old, and then they get apprenticed. So Horace is an apprentice in the battle school, so he's working to become a warrior, and then Will is a ranger. So before this story I'm about to tell you, basically what happens is they go off on a mission with another ranger, Gillen, and it was to see kind of what's going on with a war that's going to happen. So they go and they scout different cities. Celtics was one of them that they went and checked, and they found out that they were being taken prisoner by Mograth, who is the Lord of Rain and Night, and he was kind of a long time before this. He was actually in the kingdom, but he tried to betray and take the throne. So it's been like 15 years, and he's finally come back for his revenge, and he has plans to get his army down, which is kind of like an army of savages. So they find out these plans, and Gillen, who was in charge of that mission, leave Will and Horace behind and go on ahead to warn the kingdom of these plans. And on Will and Horace's way back, they find a plan for Morgoth to cross his army across the bridge, and that's why they've been taken prisoners, is to build this bridge. And Will and another person who kind of isn't important to the story, but they ended up getting captured by them, but they were able to destroy this bridge, and that only left Horace, who went back to the war front with the army and everything. And he was there watching the battle, and eventually the Mograth's army was being defeated, so he called a truce, and then he challenged the king, which is who I'm going to be telling the story as, to a duel, 1v1 duel. And he did this kind of knowing that he wouldn't accept, but they're chivalrous. This is in the medieval times, and he was going to accept, but instead of Mograth challenging Duncan, the king, who he thought he was going to challenge, he ended up challenging Halt, who was Will's apprentice. Will had been captured, so there were a lot of emotions going on, and so that's kind of where I'm going to start the story. So I have my crown here. I couldn't get to Burger King to get my actual crown and then my robes. So we're going to be at medieval castle and in Reton. So you're all aware of the story of Sir Horace and how he defeated Lord Morgoth, correct? Yes. Now, most of you might think that it was a wonderful battle and he did it in one swoop of his sword, and he was able to take down Morgoth with one cut, as he is one of the most renowned knights in the kingdom. But the truth is, he was actually almost defeated. Now, this might come to a surprise, as you can see Sir Horace, the new king and the husband of my daughter, to be the most powerful knight in the kingdom. But he was actually very young at the time. He was 16 years old. He had a lot of emotions since his best friend Will had been captured. You all know Will, the legendary ranger as well. But he had actually been captured by the army, King Morgoth, Lord Morgoth. So he had called the truce, and he wanted to duel for the kingdom. And I thought he was going to challenge me, of course, wanted to dethrone me, so he would take me down, and I was ready to accept. But he challenged Halt, and obviously I couldn't have this happen. So I denied it and gave him no permission to do that. Then, out of nowhere, Horace came and challenged Morgoth. And as quickly as anything, Morgoth accepted it, because he knew that if he took down this kid, this young child, who was known for his knighthood, but was on no par compared to this legendary figure of Lord Morgoth. He came in, he accepted the challenge, and I couldn't do anything about it. In my chivalry, I had to let the battle commence. Now, something you should all know is you've heard the story of how Mograth was scary, but in person it just was not compared to anything. His hair was silver, his face was pale, his eyes were a dark blue. He looked like a dead figure. But Horus, as brave as he was, stepped in to challenge this in my behalf. Now, I tried to deny it, but I was not able to do this. So he went into the battle. Whatever was to be done was going to happen. So, when this all started, I seen the first swoop, and I heard my right-hand man, the Battlemaster, Rodney, yell duck as he tried to take a cheap stroke towards Horus, and he dodged it. This was one of the things that more expert people would do. They would try to just end it quickly, but luckily Horus dodged it. So they backed their horses off and started going towards each other. Mograth's power in his sword was, you could see it. He was a legendary figure. He swung at Horus, and Horus was just able to block it with his shield. But the power behind it, I could see it. I could feel the pain. I have been in battles like this many times before, and I knew what Horus was going through. But I did not have much faith, as Horus had never done battle like this. Now, the only thing I could do was hope. Hope that he could hold his ground, and hope that he, by some miracle, would win this battle. Now, obviously, you know how this ends. He lives. He's still here. But it was very, very emotional, because every time they passed by, you could see Horus's look on his face, that he wasn't going to make it, that he wasn't going to be able to win this battle. And on one of the last meetings they hit, Mograth broke his shield and he was defenseless. Now he had nothing to do. He had to parry the block. So when on the next turnaround, when they went towards each other, Horus was able to block it. He blocked it, but he was barely able to do it. Now, you could see that Horus was coming up with a plan. Now, there wasn't much we could do about it, but we had to have faith. And Horus, out of some miracle, threw himself in front of his Mograth's horse, which caused the horse to fall over and collapse, leaving them on foot. They began to battle, parrying each other's hits back and forth until Horus's sword broke. Now it was short like a dagger, and Mograth was trying to have his last laugh. So he took his time and made sure everyone would see what they was about to do in killing Horus. But Horus took out his dagger, and none of us knew what he was going to do. But this was a ranger's move, because on the mission he was with Will and Gillen, he had learned a new tactic. It was called the dagger block. He was able to block Mograth's sword and push his body up against him and stab Mograth in the heart, ending the battle right there. There were cheers everywhere, but Horus was hurt. He had sustained injuries, but he would be fine. Now, this is very important for everyone to know, that don't be stupid, but know your skill and know what you can do and remember everything you've learned. Now, Horus is a legendary figure. This battle started his journey. He was 16 years old, and he was able to get through this and defeat one of the most powerful knights who had been in this kingdom. But this didn't let this get to his head. He was able to continue his training and continue to learn new tactics and fight different enemies, and that's how he became king today, because he began from there and kept learning and getting better and getting better. And this is a very important thing to know, that even though you might seem powerless, if you remember your training and continue to do what you know you can do, everything will be alright. And that's my story. Thank you.